If you enjoy this video, please feel free to share it. And if you would like to support in any way, there is a link to my Ko-fi account on my Instagram bio. There is also full and mini tutorials on sewing, crafting and more. You can also find me on Facebook and on YouTube. Alright, so I'm going to be making a clip-on extension for Rost's beard for the client that I'm making the costume for. And on the side of his jawbones he's got two on each side smaller little dreadlocks, and then he's got a sort of mega braid in the center of his chin going all the way down till at least his collarbone. So I'm going to be providing some clip-in beard extensions. As the client does have an existing beard, he'll be clipping them in. So this is a type of fur. It's not your conventional type of fur. It's actually quite thin, and it has a weird sort of texture to it, but it looks really cool. Kind of has that sort of beard, sort of roughish sort of beard texture to it, which is really cool. And it's also double-sided, which is nice. The one side obviously is thicker than the other. I think they would use it for maybe a type of jersey, you know, for a fashion jersey or that sort of thing. But it's a really pretty color. It's like a charcoaly brown. So I've cut two shapes. As you can see, it's quite thin. You can actually see through it if you hold it up like that. But that's okay because we're going to be rolling it. So I've cut two shapes. They look a bit weird at the moment, but basically what these are going to be is they are going to be the pairs of dreadlocks on the side of each jawbone, and then I will also be doing the same sort of method for the mega braid down the center of the chin. That will be a bit of a different shape, but I thought I would just show how I create basically the smaller ones. Because this is quite thin, I'm not going to use any type of glue. I'm not going to use hot glue. I usually only use hot glue for covering something with fur, as you know, it holds really well, and you know, you can blend in the seams of fur pretty well using a little bit of hot glue, and then you massage it in and it disguises the seams quite well. But because this is quite thin, it might seep through, so I'm going to avoid that. It might start looking a bit messy. So I'm going to be rolling it, pinning it, and then hand stitching it together. So I'm going to use the side that's a little bit more fluffy on the outside. So I'm going to be rolling inwards on the thinner side so that I get the thicker look on the outside. So I'm just going to roll that in there. Nice even roll. And I'm going to place a pin through there. Rolling this side. As you can see, it's looking pretty interesting so far. As you know, I usually do tutorials in a little booklet form on my Instagram. I have started doing some tutorials for YouTube. I've been busy with work, so that's been put on hold for a little bit, but I do have some really cool plans, and I'm really excited to share some processes with you guys on some of the other things I create, even if it's not a full-on tutorial. So yeah, alright, so there, that guy is pinned. Looks a bit weird at the moment, but once it has like some decorations and things on it, once we sort of thin out the bottom, I think it will look pretty cool for some clipping sort of dreadlocks. Looks weird now, kind of looks like hairy spider legs. Alright, so I'm going to take a sewing needle and some dark grey thread, and I'm going to hand stitch from the top down to where the fold sort of stops. I'm going to start at the top because the clip will then disguise that as well. I will be sewing on or hand stitching on a little wig clip so that one can part your beard, stick it in there, add a little bit of hairspray to make it a bit tacky, and then clip it in. So because this is a thin mesh, I'm going to just bring it right through. I have added a knot at the end of my thread. but because the knot will just pull right through, I'm gonna catch in between, because the thread's doubled up, in between those two threads, and then pull it so that it actually loops around. The nice thing about using a thread that matches is that you don't have to stitch too close to each other. You can actually stitch quite irregularly. Irregularly? Is that a word? Your stitching can be irregular because you don't even see it, and that's something you can get away with, so that's alright. So as you can see, I'm just tacking basically right through the layers that have been folded or rolled together, basically like patching up a hairy spider. That is weird, I don't know why I said that. Once I've gotten to the end, or at least about a little bit away from the bottom, I've removed the pins, and I'm going to now just wrap the thread around the end, and that's where the little hairband decoration is going to go, like so, and then stitch through that. And knot it. So I'm just using a trimming scissors to trim away some of the square shape, pulling it a little bit, and then I will most likely use a little bit of hairspray or gel to just shape it like that, so it's not so blunt cut. Alright, so here is the other side stitched up and thinned out a little bit at the bottom. As you can see, it is still flat at the base, and that's where we will be putting on our little clip. We're hand stitching it on there, and it's those clips that snap so he can spread his beard. Like I said previously, put a bit of hairspray or some got to be gel or gel just to make it a bit tacky. Stick that in there, get it all in nice and good, catch some of those beard hairs and clip it in. Yeah, cool. While I'm stitching this clip into the short dreadlocks that I have put together for Rost, I just thought I would share why I want to show the process of this. I actually thought to myself, who's going to need a tutorial or need to know how to do this? I mean, it's such a specific thing. But, with Halloween coming up, I thought it might be quite cool to share because, you could do a pirate, you could possibly add it into an existing wig. You could also, make a cool Viking beard if you wanted to do a cool Viking Jarl. You could use normal fur for this as well. I wanted to use this type of fur because Rost is a little bit older and it's not a new looking type of color. It looks a little bit, ashy, which is really nice. You could use a sort of thick pile fur for this as well. I'll probably dry brush a little bit of grey acrylic just to give it a little bit more of an older look, and give it a little bit more character once I add some of the decorations. So I'm just going to demonstrate how one can use hot glue and a normal type of fur which has the mesh at the back and then the pile on the other side. I wouldn't recommend using a glue gun on very, very thin fur. It can seep through and start getting like really messy and tacky. This fur is quite thick, so it will work pretty well. And I'm just going to apply a bit of glue on the edge and then roll it, and then you'll get a nice sort of dread that you can shape with some hairspray, and you can put some decorations on. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of hot glue on the edge of the one side. Be very careful working with hot glue guns because they get very hot and you don't want hot glue on your finger, it'll burn. What's nice about using a glue gun for fur is that you can blend in the seam quite nicely, as I mentioned previously, because the fibers then bond together pretty well, So once it's folded over, you can actually massage it in like that. Obviously don't burn yourself. It also helps nicely when you're doing dreads because you can actually shape it a little bit. And there we go. I mean, the seam's very hard to find because the glue bonds it all together. And there we have a little mini tail. You can even use this to make little mini tails for like Monster High dolls and figurines and stuff. So here's the little demonstration ginger dread, which is quite cute actually for like a dwarf from the Hobbit, now that I think about it, from Dungeons and Dragons, fantasy type games like Warcraft. It's a really cool little trick, last minute trick for Halloween costumes even. If you have, say, a ginger beard or black beard or brown beard, you should be able to find a fur that works pretty well, but you can always use some paint to blend it in. And I mean, once it's clipped in, if you can tuck it into your existing beard that's quite long. I wish I had a long beard at the moment. I don't. My beard is quite short, so I can't clip it in to show you guys. But you know, you get the idea. So if you had to part your beard and clip it in and blend it in, even shape your beard with a little bit of product, I think it could be quite cool. Just to give an idea of what I did for the mega braid in the center, I am basically going to be cutting 3 rectangles, long rectangles, based on the length that I needed, and I'm going to be dividing each rectangle up into 3 up to a certain point so that that's rolled in and the clip is attached at the top, so that it's 3 braids but essentially on one clip. And then I will plait those 3 braids to make it basically a single plait. There will be 3 plaits on the chin, so 1 in the center and 2 on the side, and then those 3 plaits can then be plaited together to create that nice thick mega braid. You can play around with it. Ideally you want to try and keep your braid as much together at the top as possible, so that when it's attached to the clip it's sort of easy to just clip it in and boop, there it is, instead of doing like a whole bunch of clips. Usually with fur, I always trim from the back of the fur. I lay it face down and I trim from the back using a sharp scissors. You can also use a knife, a sharp knife like a scalpel, because you ideally just want to cut the mesh of the fur, not right through the fibers. But because this is a very sort of shaggy, irregular type fur, you know, it doesn't always, it's not always easy to cut just the mesh, so it's alright because we're also going to be rolling it, so that's fine. But usually I do, you know, trim from the back so that the fibers aren't sort of blunt cut and choppy. As you can see, I kind of just estimated the distance of each section. Some can be a little bit bigger, some can be a bit thinner. It's part of the whole natural looking process, so it's fine. It doesn't have to be super symmetrical. It is wild. All dreadlocks are different shapes and sizes, so it kind of works in our favor. So what you want to do is you want to then flip it so that you have your thicker side. I mean, obviously if you're using a different type of fur, you know, you will know what the wrong side is, because most fur obviously has a mesh at the back. This has some fluff on the other side, not as thick as I mentioned before, but basically I'm going to roll each one. The ends I'm going to be rolling inwards, and then the center one I will be rolling from the top of up to where I cut. I'm going to roll it like that and then roll it inwards, and then I'll have basically the 3. So once it's rolled all in, it should sort of be the size of what the clip would be, something like that, just to give you an idea. So I'm going to use some Dove Grey acrylic paint to just dry brush a little bit onto the dreadlocks, just to give it a little bit more character. His beard does have almost like a blue-grey sort of streaks in them, so I wanted to just add a little bit more character, mainly towards the end, and then I will add the brown little hairbands. Yeah, I'm very excited. I love working with fur. Fur is a really versatile material. Sometimes it can be a bit expensive. Obviously I only use fake fur, I don't use real fur. I'm not a big advocate for, you know, the use of real fur, so I always use fake fur. A lot of people have asked me in the past, you know, what sort of like fur do I use? Do I use real or fake? It's always fake fur. So there it is with a little bit of blue. It looks really cool and I'm happy with that. It's very in line with the reference. And now we can wrap some decorations. I'm just using this thin sort of suede trim that I'm going to wrap around the ends. Alright, so here it is with some hair decorations. I'm now going to just add a little bit of shading to the hair bands, just to give it a little bit more character, because you know the rest of his costume is battle damaged and has a bit of weathering, so I want to also just tie that into the rest of the costume. So here we have the braids that have been painted and decorated. I'm just gonna use a bit of hairspray just to shape it a bit better, to remove the static hairs and to refine the tips. So let's do that, and then it's done, and basically one can repeat the process for the other braids, you know. So I think it works pretty well, and like I said, for Halloween it's really cool for a quick last minute pirate. If you have any fur lying around, make some cool braids and dreads for either a hat or to clip in your own beard. I know some men don't necessarily like shaving their beards for costumes, so that's alright. So, you know, utilize it. You could do a cool Viking, a cool undead pirate. You could do white, if you have white fur, you could do cool white dreads and do like an undead Leech King pirate, or you know, that the imagination is endless. The possibilities are truly endless. So have fun with it. I hope this helps. Next will be some photos of the actual braids that I've completed. So yeah, enjoy, and let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below.